Prime IV Delray Beach helps you feel better, look better, and perform better with IV vitamin therapy. Each of our IV drips is the equivalent of 2.5 gallons of hydration and a custom blended mix of vitamins designed to help you reach your health goals. The top complaints we address are more energy, better sleep, sports recovery, meaning less soreness when you work out, or a great boost to your immune system. Come in if you're feeling under the weather or to help stave off those nasty bugs if someone's in your house and brought them home. Use the code word SWEET, SWEET, for 20% off any IV treatment now through the end of March 2024. Valid at the Delray Beach location only.
Hey, everybody. It's Andrea Trout with Sweet and Spicy Podcast. I'm here with Miss Carolina Rush. Hi, Carolina.
Hi.
Hello. And we have a special guest in the studio today. This is what happens after a late night of drinking. Hi, Lisa Rigoli. We're so happy to have you.
I'm so happy to be here.
We just threw this together on Wednesday, and Lisa's like, sure, I'll come on when we've had a few Prosecco's and high noon. So we're, nice that you can come last minute and join us.
Yeah, and I have a Prosecco in hand now.
I know, and we have high noons. Like, the world keeps on spinning the way it was
And we were just saying yesterday, like, when are we going to stop drinking? And here we are again.
Not today.
Not today. I really am a healthy person. But tell us, we've known each other for a little bit now through our business networking group, but tell us a little bit about your business.
Yes, we're a boutique firm based here in South Florida, and we specialize with working with healthcare or retail organizations that are going through major leadership transitions, such as reorgs or restructures. We come in and we offer one-on-one coaching or team building or learning and development to help stabilize those teams as they're navigating through changes.
Awesome. And I think I remember you saying it's a little bit on like medium to bigger companies?
That's right, medium to large.
Yeah. And how long have you been doing it?
I have been doing it for 7 years, but my background's been in the corporate space for 17 years as an HR leader.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And you've got 2 little kids.
I have a 4 and 3-year-old, 2 girls going on 14 and 13, so send help.
Yeah,
right.
I know what that's like.
Wait, she has a 14-year-old that's already thinks she's like 24, so.
Yeah.
The struggle's real.
Really?
Oh, totally.
Yes.
Yeah, totally. And by the way, you have your elevator pitch like down pat.
Oh, why, thank you.
Yeah,
Yes.
a lot of practice.
I know, it's good.
I still don't even know what to say. I say something different every time somebody asks me what I do.
Oh, about the chamber?
Yeah.
You help people be part of the best chamber ever.
It's a little bit more than that, but.
I know, but that's like, the rest is just bonus.
Yeah.
I mean, we're losing one of our great members who probably doesn't listen to us, but Daniel Listy's leaving. We're very sad.
Yes. And that's what brought us all together kind of the other night.
Yeah.
100%.
And this is a very random podcast because we were not prepared. We're like, we're going to, it's like a pop-up podcast.
Yeah, I like it. Pop-up topic randomness.
Yeah. Random Lisa being here.
I know.
Random topics.
Janine might chime in.
Yes.
It's
It'll be
going to be
fun.
a
producer.
It's going to be good.
It's always good. Carolina had a great topic for today that kind of is part of the randomness that is today's episode.
Yeah, actually, there's a lot of topics. So I love Googling topics to talk about on the podcast. And something came up about 130 debate questions that you can talk about on a podcast. And a lot of them are related to relationships, which you and I love to talk about.
Yes.
And so there's different sections. Like there might be one on long distance relationships and might be one on finances. And so I chose to start with controversial topics in a relationship.
I like it. And you're not telling us, you didn't tell us what the first question is.
This is true.
No, I haven't told you what the first question is. And I figured we might stay on the first question for a while, or we might get through 20 of these. Who knows? We're just going to see where it goes.
Absolutely.
But I thought it would be fun because we don't really know what's coming. So I will start with, how do financial disparities affect relationship dynamics?
Oh, that's a good one. I mean, I personally think they can affect it. I think it's going to depend on the people in the relationship. It really is what somebody's looking for. There are some women who are perfectly fine with a man staying at home and being a house dad. And there's a lot of women, I think I would include myself in that group. I could not do it. You cannot stay home and be a house dad if you're with me and I'm working. No, that's a no for me.
Right.
So, but I know that there's a lot of women that it's the other way around and they're fine with it.
So with my first marriage, my husband had some issues keeping a job for what he had some issues and couldn't keep a job. And he ended up asking me to be the breadwinner and he would stay at home. And my initial reaction was like, are you fucking crazy?
Right.
And so he insisted that's what he wanted to do. And I lost all respect for him. Mm-hmm. And we were getting a divorce 4 months later.
Yeah, that's hard.
I mean, it's crazy. Like, I just don't know. I mean, he was actually like 8 years younger than me. I like him younger.
I like them whiter.
And we'll get into that.
You did tell me something funny about that the other day. I was like, oh, that's a good one.
But you're actually married now.
So we're married now, and like 2 fun facts that they're out there is that Jay and I got married later in life. So we didn't get married until our late 30s. And my husband's a bankruptcy attorney. So I share that because he's always dealing with people that are filing Chapter 11s, 13s, et cetera. So I knew when getting in the relationship, I was like, we have to establish 2 things. I've been spending my money the way that I've been doing it for several decades. So that's not going to change. So we agreed in the very beginning, we would have one joint account and then our own personal account, which we loved. But at the end of 2022, my role at DaVita, the healthcare company I was working for, went through a big reorg. And my role was eliminated, but I knew I wanted to bet on myself and take my side business to my main book of business. And my husband was like, whoa, we need to like look at things. And I'm like, no, we don't, because the joint account is in place. I know what my finances are, and I'm going to bring it in. And I'm going to have my other account to do what I need to do. And I share that because it was a risk. There are things that I still, if you're ever listening to this, babe, I'm sorry. He has no line of sight to what I pay for and how I spend my money in my business. But he doesn't need to know that, right? Because I believe that as long as we're coming in together with this one joint account to take care of the business, we're fine. Because at one point we were making the same. And now it looks drastically different. But I would share that it was nerve-wracking when I did do it. But I was like, why? I'm like, I'm in my 40s now. Like, I know how to swipe a credit card. I know how to save. And I know how to also use overdraft fees if I need to.
Right. Yeah. All of the above. So the joint account is your, like, you pay the bills out of for the household, all that.
The household, the kids. It's there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny. My aunt and uncle who are in their 70s, like, they've always done that. And it's really interesting because that is not typical of that generation. But, it's kind of the same thing where she's like, I've got stuff I want to spend my money on. He's got stuff he wants to spend his money on, and we have a joint account to pay the household stuff,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it works. It works for us at least, because I'm like, that way you're not asking me questions. As long as my funds come in when it needs to, don't worry about it.
I think a lot of people do that. I did that with husband number 1 and husband number 2.
Yeah.
Which was also like 7 years younger, by the way.
Younger.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Yeah. I've always gone for the younger ones.
I'm so the opposite.
A cougar.
Until recently.
No, not a cougar, a puma.
A puma. But seriously, so let's say you met somebody for the first time and he made a lot less money than you. Mm-hmm. Would that affect you moving forward?
Yeah. I hate to say it. I'm not your sugar mama. I just am not. Like, that is not what I want. Like,
but what if he takes care of his own? He takes care of his shit, but you happen to make more money than him.
Okay, but then you're like wanting to go on a vacation, and all of a sudden, like, you want to go on the vacation you want to go on, and he can't afford to pay for that, his half or whatever, or take you on a vacation. Like, I like it. I'm sorry, this is a little old school of me, old fashioned. Like, look, I can pay my bills and take care of his stuff, but I do think there's an element of the kind of man that I want and the energy around it of a man's job. If he's in his masculine energy, which for me, that's what I want, is to provide and protect. And it doesn't have to be like you're a billionaire, you don't have whatever. I'm not saying that, but like there's an element of that where like they're going to take care of things for you to some extent. Like that's what I'm looking for. I'm not saying that's everybody. By no means does everybody have to have that be what they want.
Right.
But
Can I get an amen?
Yeah.
Amen. Woo.
But I would agree because in our relationship, it's a like unspoken rule that even though there's this joint account, I'm actually, when we go out, I'm expecting Jay is paying for the dinner. I am expecting Jay is providing in that way. I'm expecting to still, in our relationship, to be courted after, because that's what I feel. I've dated guys that did not make enough, and it was always awkward splitting the bill, or I felt like I was always providing more, and I didn't like how that made me feel as a female.
100%.
So to your point, like, were they taking care of their own? Yes, but then I felt like they weren't taking care of me in a way that felt like I'm still being courted. I'm still being sought after. Like, I think it's sexy as hell when Jay grabs the bill and it's not even a discussion. Like, he's surprising me with a spa day. I'm like, thank you.
100%.
Yeah.
So it's funny because, and I always say don't write people off immediately, because with my current situation,
Situationship.
that's what it is right now. I make twice as much as he does, but he still takes care of the bill.
Yeah.
And like, we were going to an event the other day and it was $10 to park, and he was in the middle of driving looking where we're going. And so I just grabbed a 20 out of my bag and he was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm going to pay for the parking. It's $10. Like, "No, you're not." So even though that's the situation, he still steps up to the plate.
Great.
Pays for dinner. So that's what I'm saying. Like, how do you know that's not going to be the case?
I don't know, but the question you posed to me is, what if somebody made significantly less money than me? So again, it's a case-by-case basis, and obviously there are times when you really have a connection with somebody and money isn't part of that, right? And maybe that happens for some people, and they're just willing to go all in. And certainly, like, if you go the extreme of the feminine, masculine, like, groups out there that have lurked in, and I really disagree with some of the things that they say, like, they legitimately say the woman should stay at home, the man makes all the money, or if she makes money, she gives him all her money. Like, and these are like groups of people that have this like old school thought of like traditional polarity. And I think there's a range of living in polarity that's healthy. I think for me, that's not what I want. I don't want that extreme polarity, because I'm of the mindset, like, I'm always going to have my own money, because if, look, shit hits the fan, I'm going to get out,
100%.
You know? And I don't want to be in a relationship with that, like, as an exit, but at the same time, I'm never going to let somebody have 100% control of the money. It just, dumb as a woman.
I totally agree with that, 100%.
So I think it's a case-by-case basis, but I really do think that there is an energy around it for the kind of man that I would like to be with. If they do not have that provider, and this is what you've been seeing with somebody that's like, "What are you doing?" Like, that masculinity, and some people will call it toxic, and that's okay. That's their bent on the world. But, like, that is the type of masculinity that I want. Like, no, I got you. And it's not like you're asking them to buy designer bags or anything. That's not what we're talking about. It's $10 parking. Do I care if I pay $10 of parking? It's a principle. And, you know, there's times like, I mean, who was it? Somebody was just saying every time a friend of ours, like, she would go out with an ex and, he would forget his wallet and she'd have to buy the dinner or the glass of wine or whatever. And finally she's like, no.
Okay, that's just weird. I feel like that's intentional.
Oh, right. And
100.
I feel like the way that you responded, we're all actually saying the same thing. So maybe it's not necessarily what they're making. It's how are they showing up in the relationship that we feel like we're being provided for. Because you're saying in your situation, even if you take out your wallet, he's like, what are you doing? Even that alone is what I'm saying is what I need. Necessarily, if Jay, there's going to be a point, and I hope he does listen to this part, I will be making twice as much as what he's making today. And it's not going to change our relationship, because it's the way he makes me feel when it's like, babe, why would you even think to take out? I'm providing for you. And I don't quote me on it, but I'm 99% sure that just 50 years ago, we as women weren't even able to go into a bank and open our own credit card without our spouse or without our father. So for as far as we've come, I'm like, okay, well, now I'm here. Like, I'm now here. Everything my mom and my grandmother had to do to get us here, I want to make sure that you don't forget that I'm still bringing my money in, but I still want to make sure you're taking care of me. Right. So I think that's what I know.
100%. And I am totally good with 50-50. Some people are not. But I remember, and I think one of the reasons is, you know, growing up, my mom came from a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And my mom married my stepfather, who didn't have a lot of money at first, but built an empire.
Right.
and he became a millionaire, basically. And they traveled the world, and my mom didn't have to work, and she got everything that she wanted, and she got to have all the luxuries in life. That never I don't care about traveling the world. I don't care about going to museums. That was never my thing. And I don't like it. It's just not something that interests me.
Yeah.
So she would always, I would date guys, and her main priority was, well, what do their parents do? Or how much does he make? What does he do for a living? And it was always about the money.
Yeah.
And I'm like, gosh, why?
Well, she was brought up in that world.
That's what I'm saying. But I think that's one of the reasons why I went against that.
Yeah.
And I have always been, and it's funny because I'm from Boca. I grew up in Boca, and we have a reputation of being a Boca bitch and gold digger. And I have always been one that's like, I could live in a shack.
Yeah.
I don't care. As long as he makes me happy, I'm fine.
Yeah.
And I still go by that today. Maybe a little bit less because I have kids, and it's a package deal now, and obviously it takes more finances. But for me, the money is not such a big deal.
Yeah.
As long as there's a partnership, an equal partnership, and I will do 50-50.
So do you know who Alex Hormozi is? Hormozi? So he's built a huge brand. Like has a pharmaceutical or a supplement line, and he had a big gym, like coaching brand. Like he helped people build their gyms. Like he's very, very well known, like multi, probably 100 millionaire, plus like really wealthy.
Right.
And the best story I ever heard was he at one point was just, we're entrepreneurs, you've done business, it's tough. And sometimes you just don't know if that money's ever going to be there.
Yep.
And he said to I don't know if it was his wife at the time or a girlfriend, but he's like, you should leave me, because he couldn't provide for her. Because he was like, I don't know if this is going to work, and I don't have any, and I think men get in that about themselves. And she said to him, I will live under a bridge with you. She goes, I believe in you. She goes, I don't care. She goes, I'm staying with you. And I like that, because I do think that there's an element of, especially women, we can see something in men sometimes that they don't see in themselves. And I think that says she saw this man as, he's going to do this, I'm going to be fine. And if not, I do think there's an element of that. Like, if it's the right person, you're willing to live in a shoebox, right? Or under a bridge. Maybe a bridge is a little extreme, but you get the point. So 100%, there's a chance that there's a connection with somebody so strong, and you see that they're trying to build something. I'm for that. I would much rather have a man who's trying to build something, if that was the case, rather than he's just going to a dead-end corporate job.
Right.
That to me is sexy as all get out.
I have an interesting story. So when I was in my early 20s, I was dating this guy that actually my current situation knows about. And he was living in a friend's room that my friend owned a house. He was like renting the room at him. This guy did not have 2 pennies to rub together. And it was very apparent. And we were dating. And that was something that bothered me at the time. Mm-hmm. And he was a local DJ. He was famous locally. And he did all the parties and whatever. But that was a big problem. He was borrowing money, this and that and the other. You could tell he didn't have any money, and he was trying to be this big famous DJ. And that did at the time, I was early 20s, was a little bit of an issue. And today, he is a multi-million-dollar producer, working with the biggest artists out there.
Yeah.
So you're like, damn. You would have never thought.
Right.
What could happen?
Right. And you also make a commitment to we weren't in love or anything like that, but I am the kind of person that would, if I love somebody enough and you could tell, like you said, they're trying to build something, I would love to be a part of that and be their partner to help them get there.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because you never know. You just never know what could happen in the future.
Right.
What's coming to mind for me is I want to go back to something you said earlier, because I'm also a Boca girl, born and raised in West Boca. And something I don't share publicly is that my dad was a taxi driver. And I used to be very embarrassed living in Boca that that's the way that my dad earned a living. I mean, to the point that it actually was the thing that broke my mom and my father. My mom was a nurse. She would like brought in the money, et cetera. But I share that because it was never about a money thing for me growing up. When he left, at any point, if I needed something, my dad was right there. And I share that because I'm actually kind of mad that I like use the example of, oh, Jay buys me a spa day. What Jay does for me, he takes care of me in a way that feels good. Like, and what I mean for that is if I was stranded on the road, I mean, granted, my husband should come get me, but it's like he is there. Like, I'm going to pick you up from the airport. Like he does these things that just makes me feel taken care of, in addition to providing for the family.
And so, like, real quick, like a spa day, he knows you feel really taken care of.
Correct.
That's something you love. Whereas somebody else may not care about that, but it's something he knows is for you. Yeah,
exactly. And the comment you're making earlier about like how there's a time where men probably thought that women should stay at home. If you were to come in our household, it's not even like a 50-50 the way we raise our kids. Like we are parenting our kids. We don't divide it. Like Jay is there. Jay is on the floor with them. Jay's doing the things. And it's those things that make me feel like, oh, you showed up. Like you're in that masculine energy where you're like, oh, it's not my wife's job to do this. Like I'm showing up. And I think that's why I was thinking about your story growing up. Like your mom kept mentioning money. And for me, it was just like, how is my spouse going to show up to make sure that I know he has my back financially, but also he is there with me in the trenches. When the kids are waking up in the early morning, he's not like, babe, go get them. Because he knows damn well I'm like, I'm sleeping because I had them before they went to, like, you know, it's just like, I don't know. I just thought I would add that.
There's equality and it's not I have him 50% of the time. It's I'm just at my limit. He's like, good, I got it.
Correct.
I got you, girl. Yeah, for sure. And that's what you want, right? You really want a partnership. And it's going to be different for you and Jay versus you in the situationship or, you know, an ex or whoever comes along later, maybe.
Right.
But it's always going to be different. What
So
that
much has
looks
changed
like.
since episode 1.
I know, right?
Really. I know. But, and that's, I think, what really that's the thing I think, one, is you have to know what you want.
Yes.
I do think you have to have some flexibility because I think there's always going to be compromise. But, and the other side of it, like I have some married friends and, you know, I'm not going to tell their business, but at times, like some of my married friends, it's not this now, but money was the biggest issue that was like a serious issue. I have another set of friends, money is the biggest issue. And the husband has a spending problem and the wife at one point handed over the finances because she couldn't get him to do like anything. And quite frankly, he's just screwed it up, like put them in a worse place. And the stress of it, it's a lot of times they say the number one reason people break up is finances.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like you got to have that conversation. And I don't know if you and I agree on this. I think you have those conversations early.
100%.
Because why waste the time if we're not in agreement and we can't get an agreement? I'm not wasting my time. I'm tired.
Yeah. I have
like
a
something
different
spicy's
perspective,
coming out.
but
I know.
that will be a whole nother conversation. See, this was only one question.
I love it.
So we're going to move on to the next one.
Let's do it.
Okay, so the next one is, can a relationship survive infidelity and regain trust? Oof. My answer is absolutely fucking not.
I've seen it
I would
multiple
agree.
times.
I don't think I could see him or look at him the same way knowing that he experienced something with someone else. So I'm a hell no. And vice versa. I wouldn't want him to look at me the same way either.
I could never, I mean, and I've been through it. It will always be in the back of my head. And there will always be triggers.
100%, yeah.
And so that's why I say, I mean, yes, you might be able to coexist and put on a happy face and move on, but there's always going to be that doubt and that you're going to remember it. And that hurt, I don't think, is ever going to go away. And so, no, I do not think, I guess you could technically survive it, but it will never be what it was before that happened. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Like you personally, as whoever the person that was not doing it, could survive it per se. Like they can move on and they will find what they need next. But you couldn't actually survive being with that person.
I mean, I think some people could. I think what I'm saying is I think a relationship could survive, as in like, you know, the kids were involved. They'll tolerate each other. They'll make it work. But I think the relationship will never be what it was prior to that happening.
So I don't necessarily disagree with that statement. I think there's a lot of things, infidelity being one of them, that are going to change relationship from what it was.
Yes.
That could be a bankruptcy. That could be health scares, accidents, other family members dying. There's a lot of things that can throw a relationship into a different phase. I've seen people survive infidelity, and it was hell, quite frankly, like literally hell. And the people that survived it and are still together all had faith. They went through counseling in various ways for years and had times where literally the person who was cheated on sitting at the divorce attorney thinking, fuck this person, I'm out. And they didn't get out. And it wasn't for the kids. The kids were pretty much out. They were out of the house in both situations. So it wasn't because they had little kids. And I actually think that's a terrible reason to stay together.
Agreed.
It is a terrible reason to stay together, but I do not believe that if a woman is cheated on or a man, that even though, to me, what you're just describing is surviving the relationship. Yes, the relationship survives. But I do not believe for 1 second that that person doesn't think about that every now and then, and it's not in the back of their mind just a little bit.
I'm not here to say that's not true. I wouldn't say that they are surviving. I think from my perspective, and granted, I'm outside the relationships, both of them are actually stronger. And, I think that the cheaters in both situations had so much remorse, and it doesn't make it easier for the person who was hurt. The cheating was never about the other spouse. It was about the person's, like, where they were. They had some drifting apart in both things, like. So, and look, it's hard, and I don't blame anybody for not staying together with somebody if they were cheated on. I think it's a big question, but all I'm saying is I do think it can be survived, and I think people are quick to say, no, never, ever can I stay in this if that happened. And again, trust's broken.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think that it can survive.
Yeah.
I just don't think it would be the same. But that's my experience.
Yeah.
It's that space of if I've never personally experienced it. So where I'm coming from is similar to what you guys are saying, which is I don't think I would tolerate it, meaning what would my actions be? Is it that I want to fight because I still love this person, I remember the vows, and I want to go to counseling, knowing that I'm hurt and I'm upset, and am I going to be able to survive this? But because I've never been in it, I don't know really if I would do it. Right now, my reaction is like, Jay, you did what? I'm out. Like, I'm not even messing around. And I don't want to make a joke out of it, but Jay and I have known each other since middle school.
Wow.
He dated my best friend in middle school. And then there was a girl that he picked over me when we were after college. And till this day, I still remember it. The fact that I'm even talking about it on the podcast makes me feel like, could I really survive it if I remember those two other people?
Right.
It's just because I feel like if I said I loved you and I love you and I trust you, don't do that to me.
Yeah.
I just hope I would be strong enough to get through it for the family that we've created, but never being in it, I don't know. Because my first knee-jerk reaction is, no, I'm out. Like, I'm out. I'm shutting down. Like, get your bags, figure it out. I'm going to now probably go do something to regret, like, for you to feel the pain. Like, I think that's where my mindset is going because never experienced it.
Right. And I think it also has to do with personality. Like, there's people that are more forgiving than others. People that are more jealous than others, people that are more insecure than others.
Right.
I think if you had asked me this 7 years ago, I was always the person that believed in second chances. And then after I actually went through it with my ex, if I were to go through that now, thinking about it, I'm like, oh my God, I don't ever want to go through what I went through or feel what I felt. So absolutely not.
Yeah.
But I would have said probably, yeah, I'll give it a second shot before it actually happened with my other one. You know what I'm saying? But now having gone through it, it's so painful, and I could have never rekindled, and I know how it would have been with him.
Yeah.
If I had gotten back together with him. It never would have been the same. I
Can
would
I
have never
chime
believed
in?
anything he said.
Please.
So just to play on that for a second. My viewpoint is a little bit different with that because I've experienced that, what you're talking about. And here's my take on it, right? So that's one aspect that seems to be like the one thing that people are like, absolutely not in a relationship. But what about if you married an ex-addict and they relapsed? What do you do then? Could you trust them? They're going to lie and do whatever they're going to do behind your back? Or what if they had a gambling problem? What if they had a porn addiction? What if they had any type of behavioral addiction, whether it's cheating, whether it's sex, drugs, porn, whatever, gambling? It's still a form of an addiction that needs to be treated by the person. There's something going on behind in their brain that needs to be rewired. So I don't necessarily think that infidelity is the end all be all. I think it's anything that someone falls back on as an addiction.
But I feel like what you brought up is such a strong point. If I'm just hypothetical, if my husband had this issue prior to our marriage, then yes, to your point, it would be an addiction. Like I would know about it. It's happening. Now he's had a relapse. If it's a one-off of him dipping, somewhere else, I would be like, that to me like what you said earlier, which I love, which is it's about him versus addiction. Because if I knew he had a drug addiction, I would stick around because I signed up knowing that, and I would be with him to figure out how we overcome that. But to me, the one-off of, I got drunk with some friends and now I slipped my thing in someone else, I would be like, well, was that an addiction or did you just have a moment? Because
exactly.
But what if he was never faithful to a single person before you got married? And
then that's an addiction.
And you chose to marry them.
Then I knew what I signed up for.
Right.
And then I think that would be different because I would know, my view on it is I would have known that coming in, shame on me. All right, now what are we going to do to fix this? Like, what are we doing to move forward? Because to your point, it's no different than alcohol addiction, drug addiction, etc. My husband, unless he is living another freaking life, does not dip it anywhere else and was not doing that prior. So for him to do it in this one-off, I would be like, what happened?
Yeah, it's a different
feels
scenario.
Different.
Agreed. I don't disagree with that.
And for me, I get what Janine's saying, but for me, and maybe it's my personality, those other addictions do not include another woman. That to me is a whole nother level of infidelity, of cheating, of infidelity, of addiction, whatever it is. You have given another female what is mine. If you're gambling, great. You have a problem with gambling, we'll deal with it. It doesn't include another female.
Right, but another female doesn't include draining your bank account either. Yeah. So what is more forgivable? Him draining your bank account and lying to you about it, going to the casino, and then your bank account's empty because he gambled all the money away?
I would rather him do that.
Yes, same.
So
really?
I know.
Yeah, 100%.
Agreed.
100%.
I'd be like, we'll figure it out. We'll get the money back. Like,
this would be a good poll question.
Interesting, ladies.
I love that you
I think
it
most people are going to vote infidelity's worse.
Oh, yeah.
Because the thing with infidelity that I will say is usually if they're cheating, they're not being safe. And I've seen it, right, where they bring back an STI. So that to me is like the worst part of the cheating is if they're not being safe and that you have the potential. Because again, I've seen it where somebody cheated, prostitutes or whomever, and they bring back an STI to the other woman, to the wife. So, that's where I'm like, I think we're done. If you give me an STI, I think we might be done. And I've been cheated on. It just wasn't at that place where it was strong enough that I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to fight for this.
Right.
It was like, oh, you're so done. You're an ass. This was completely uncalled for. See ya, but it just was in that place where it wasn't strong enough, whereas the ones that I've seen make it had decades of marriage. Decades.
Yeah. Right.
So it's hard to throw that away.
Yeah.
But I love that you popped that in here. That was a good debate question there.
I know, right?
That was good.
We're going to do one more.
Okay.
You have like 10 minutes before you have to go. One more. Okay, so
time's flying.
Should couples live together before marriage?
I mean, I really think it depends on your personal values. Certainly people that are, more conservative Christian are not going to do that, is in my book.
Whether you're not or are, is it, I'm just saying, should they?
I mean, I don't have a problem with it. I mean, I think, here's where I think it gets into trouble. people don't have the tough conversations of money, if you've got kids or blended families, and what's your vision for the future. Like, I just think in general, people don't have those conversations. So I'm never going to move in with somebody until I have those like agreements. We talked about this before where, you know, in the Alison Armstrong thing, where literally she's like, have a lawyerly like discussion about if you're at this place, like, you know, you're obviously absolutely no more kids. Whereas if you were with a guy that's like, yeah, I kind of want to have a kid, you'd be like, no, I'm out. This isn't going to work. Right. But people don't have those conversations, even when they're down the road and like into the relationship. And I think people just jump into it because it's cheaper for one.
I do
it's
think
not.
Younger, you don't have those conversations. But I think especially once you've been married and once you've lived together with somebody and it didn't work out, like at my age, you better believe I'm going to touch every topic before you move in here or before we move in together, because I've learned my lesson.
So maybe it just comes with experience and age, but I see a lot of people, and I feel like even older sometimes, that they're just like, oh, I'm in love and it's so good. And they don't have that.
And I think my fear too is when people move in together. I mean, I'm all for it. After what I've been through, you should move in together and live together and experience that before committing. But
wait,
there's also...
That's a commitment. To me, that's a commitment.
Before marriage.
Okay.
So to me, moving in together is not really a commitment. It's very easy to break a lease and move out and you're done. What I'm saying is moving together prior to making the commitment to get married to one another and be the forever. But also people will say, one of my fears, I know when I was moving in with my ex younger, was if we move in now, you're going to get comfortable, and an engagement or anything that may not, it's like, well, why get engaged? We already live together.
But that's where you have an agreement. We're going to move in together, but we're going to get engaged by this time. Like, that's how serious I would be about, because and again, not everybody wants to get married, which is fine. I want to get married. If I'm doing that, I want to get married. So either we're going to have a ring on it before you move in together, or we're going to have an agreement that it's coming by a certain time frame.
What do you think?
And for me, I think it doesn't matter if you move in or not before that. I think it's also based off experience. As I shared earlier, as much as I've known my husband since middle school, we got married in our 30s. And fun story is that we dated on and off for 12 years long distance.
Wow.
So I did not move into Jay until the week before our wedding, because that was the week before I moved back to Florida.
Wow.
So I share that where we were literally up until a week before our wedding.
Wow.
Long distance, never experienced other than like a long week or 2 weeks. And here we are now.
So that's a great. How was the entry when you guys got married and then we're living together now full time? What was that like?
I feel like because of what you're saying with the core agreements, we had already established so many different conversations about things that we were stuck in our own ways about. So like a great example, I was like, hey, depending on the size of the house, like, are we going to have certain sections of the house where I can feel like I can still get ready and feel like I'm getting ready for my husband. Like, I didn't want to sharing the same bathroom in the beginning because I was like, I still want my own space and things of that nature. We talked about finances before we moved in. There was just certain things that we had already established before moving in that honestly, the biggest issue I had is that the man couldn't put his dirty clothes in the hamper. You put it next to the hamper and on the hamper, but never in the hamper.
I think that's very common.
It's so common.
But no, like we joke all the time that we're not sure how it worked. In-laws are a different story though, but so anyway.
Yeah, really.
But that's not very common. Your situation, I don't think, is very common. I think a lot of people these days do move in together before marriage. I think back in the old days, you couldn't, whatever.
See, I come from a conservative Christian environment. So a lot of my friends in high school got married before they ever had lived together. It was not acceptable. Now, as you got older, it became like just more common. But, some of my best friends from high school, like, were, the fully traditional Christian conservative. They probably, and I don't know all the details, but they probably didn't fully have sex before they got married. Like, know, like, so I do think that there's an element of that out there. I believe that most of them are still married, and so... But again, there's an element of faith and an element of you just don't get divorced there, which certainly people do. And there's no judgment on my part. It just is a different world. And I think a lot of people just forget that it exists out there.
I think it's
Right.
Yeah. But for me, I mean, I'm in my 40s. Like, would absolutely move in with somebody before I married them, as long as there's an agreement that that's where we're headed.
Wow, really?
Because see, to me, like, I have a very different.
Why do you have to get married?
Well, one, I've never been married. I really do I think there's a different level of commitment in somebody's head when they are married. And so maybe that's telling of why people don't move in together, but before they're married. But I do think you can have a commitment between the two of you before you sign a certificate that's state sanctioned. I mean, I don't necessarily even need that, and I've seen people do that where they have the ceremony and it's not an official marriage, but I just think that there's a different level in somebody's brain of that tying you to that person. But again, I also think that moving in together, you're like, it's easy, you can break the lease and move on. Like, to me, if you're moving in together, you better have a pretty serious commitment.
So the same goes for dating. If you won't live together with somebody unless you know they're going to get married, then there's no point in dating that person unless you know they want to get married.
Agreed.
So have you started, when you start to date somebody,
Yes.
you're like, will you get married?
Yes. It's a question I ask him all
So
the time.
baseball dad told you he would get married.
Yes. But he's all done.
But then my concern would be are they just telling you what you want to hear?
Maybe. But I'm going to ask the question and they can show me they're not who they say they are with their actions. But I'm still going to ask the question and have you answer it, and then I can assess the honesty. But I'm going to freaking ask the question because, look, and this is why I always say it, I show up who I am. This is who I am. This is what I want. This is where I want to go. And look, it doesn't have to be in 2 months. I'm not crazy like that. And I say it all the time to you. I think time spent is important because you got to get to know who they are. They're going to show you whether or not they're full of shit on getting married or not with time. And I'm not one of these women that I just heard. I was listening to the Matthew Hussey book we're going to talk about at some point. And he's like, this woman was with this guy for 7 years. She kept flat out telling him, I want to get married. I want to get married. And they went to Cabo, 2-week vacation, romantic, everything. He's like, the guy had a great time snorkeling and laying in the sun and no proposal. Well, she broke up with him. And then she just started serial dating all these guys. And I actually don't think I've heard the rest of the story, but I'm like, who the hell is going to wait 7 years?
Yeah.
And I know it happened, so there's no judgment.
How long did you wait?
12 years. And we broke up every time. And I was like, we went on a fancy trip. So think of it. I moved to Atlanta.
So
and I was
crazy.
like, are you coming with me? He's like, no. And I'm like, well, I'm not getting any younger. Broke up with him. Then moved to Denver. He helped me move to Denver. And I'm like, are you coming? He's like, no. And I'm like, then what the fuck are we doing? Broke up with him again. So I kept breaking up with him because I was like, show me that you're committed.
Yeah,
right.
And how he showed me is he's a practicing lawyer here in Florida. He took the bar in Colorado on a Friday, proposed on that Sunday.
Oh,
So that's why I was like, okay, you're there. But what I love that you keep honing down on is that that's your core agreement by asking up front. So that's your thing. You're like, I'm asking if that's even a thing for you, getting married or not, because it's what I desire. It's what I want.
Right.
So why are we even going to bother? And those are the things that Jay and I did. We always had certain conversations around hey, we're going to have biracial kids. Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
If we have a boy, this is getting deep, but if we have a boy, are you okay with raising a black son? We had all those conversations in advance.
Right.
Because I was like, let's make sure we know what we're getting into.
Yep.
But let me just tell you, I waited and I was that girl. And people were like, he's the wrong guy. And now all of my girlfriends are like, he's the right guy. He is the one that shows up, and everyone's like, we just never thought, because I was so fixated on the ring, and he did a good job.
right.
I think people are so quick to put their opinion in other people's businesses.
It's true.
Yes.
And one thing I can say, honestly, that in my 40s.
That would be me, by the way.
Well, I mean,
And I don't care.
AKA spicy.
you know what? I mean, here I am. I'm divorced and I'm back with my ex-husband and we live together we're still married. I mean, we still have the same last name. I still introduce him as my husband because it's so much easier than to
explain.
say,
It's my ex
that's my ex-husband
and
that I
my
live
current
with.
boyfriend.
But he's my boyfriend. But we're not fuck that. The point is I'm sure my friends were like, what is she doing? What's going on?
Right.
But I look at my friends' marriages and relationships, and they are more screwed up than anything. So if you point the finger at someone else's life and their relationship, you got to point the finger at yourself too, because no one's perfect. And I don't care what kind of bubble you want to paint a picture to be on Facebook or Instagram, things are not perfect.
Right.
And you have to be confident enough to be like, you know what, I own my stuff. I was wrong in this situation, or you know what, we're working through it. And relationships are really hard. They are not easy. They're hard work.
They're not easy, but I will say this. If you talk about your relationship to your friends or whoever, in my mind, you have just given them permission to give you their opinion.
Agreed. I don't think there's a problem of the opinion.
I mean, what are you going to do?
Like,
Just sit there and...
You're okay with your friends saying what they said to you. You can say, well, look, I've got it. I'm good. But it's okay hearing it.
It was okay hearing it to them because I almost needed the reassurance that like, oh yeah, he is the bad guy in order for me to move on. But now think about it. They're now validating he is the right guy. But I still love the fact what you said of people putting their nose in it, because people will still put their nose in it. And I have to choose whether or not to listen to it.
Right.
Because I'm talking on it now. People may come to me and talk about this episode. I share things on Instagram. People are probably going to talk about it because I'm putting it out there. But I choose whether I'm going to listen to it or not listen to it.
Right.
And the other thing is, none of us outside have the 100% picture of
View,
what is
correct.
between you and Jay.
No one
I
knows.
mean, literally, you know what goes on behind those closed doors it's not what we all see. And yes, agreed that you have a circle of trust, and I think it's important to talk about it with trusted people, right? Because who was it that we were talking about? And they're like, I didn't talk about it with anybody. And there was something we were talking about. Do you remember?
I don't remember.
And they were like, I didn't tell anybody.
But if you don't want my opinion, do not tell me.
Right.
Because I'm going
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. If I bring it up, I can't be like, oh, I'm just saying it so you can hear me and give me a hug.
Like, don't talk to me. Don't say anything. But I need to. No, that's not.
I
gonna work
agree
for
with
me.
you 100%, Carolina. What I don't agree with is like those people that it's funny because like those friends that like always tell you their business and their relationship, and like one day they hate their husband, another day they love them, and they're going through all this drama.
Really?
But when you, as a friend, gather all that information and then you bring it back up to them, and then they're like appalled that you just like brought it up when they've spilt their whole like
tea.
Right. It's like, don't spill the tea unless you want feedback. Like,
Right.
period. Like, don't do it. Don't tell me you have an abusive husband and send me a video of him running after you with a belt, call the police, and then
Expect me not to have opinion.
exactly 100%.
A strong
Fact, true
opinion.
story, by the way.
Right.
But you know
I
what
figured
I mean?
it was there was a lot of detail in it.
A lot of detail.
Really?
It's funny that you say that, because with the current one, like, there's been a couple of breakups, and I waited to tell anybody because I didn't want to fucking hear it.
But that's smart. It's you chose what to share and what
Yeah.
not to share. Yeah.
Yeah. But I knew as soon as I opened my mouth, I was going to hear it.
What did you hear from me? I just said, what happened?
I'm not talking
I know.
about
I was like,
okay.
what happened?
I know.
Ooh, you guys
There's
just
other people I've said.
I understand. I'm just saying, like,
No, you've been great. Very supportive, and you always pretty much say the right thing. But my point to what she was saying is like, yeah, I chose not to.
yeah, I feel you.
I waited
And
until I
sometimes-
was ready.
Sometimes you just got to be in that emotion for a minute.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's time.
Yeah.
We only got through I think, three
Three.
questions.
But it was, they're good.
There's 127 more to go.
Some of them aren't so good. We don't need all of
some of
them.
them aren't so good, but these were good.
Some of them we covered, like, should you have separate bank accounts? Yes.
I think so.
I agree.
Yes. And a joint is fine, but also
correct,
separate.
but separate, yeah.
100%. See, we've covered 4.
So on that note,
Be sure to
stay tuned.
stay tuned. We'll see you
Stay
next time.
tuned.
Stay tuned.